Hi, I'm Leader Post Sports Editor Rob Vanstone. I'm here with our fine football writer Murray McCormick. I apologize in advance for my voice sore throat. So I'll defer to Murray, who can fill the content for this 20 minutes. Murray, the onus is on you now. What are your thoughts on where the Riders are after last Saturday's game in Calgary, looking ahead to a pretty inconsequential game against Edmonton this weekend and then the playoffs?
It's almost as enjoyable as you losing your voice. Let me just ponder that for a second.
I can still email you, so you're not out of the woods yet.
Still in the woods, yeah. I guess electronics world is going to make it bad, and social media.
And I have your BBM contact number, so there's no escaping.
That's true. I just remember the sound of your voice then. As we remember Saturday's game, it's kind of funny. We're all kind of blowing up on the Riders, things the Riders didn't do, and I know it's a Rider-centric world, but boy, Calgary played well. Charleston Hughes, I said before, is a Rider wrecker, and he was that and more against the Roughriders. There's going to be a lot of talk about Kory Sheets whiffing the block, Dan Clark whiffing the block, but Hughes was just dominating the line of scrimmage, and that might have been one of the best, and he got the Defensive Player of the Week award based on that. John Cornish, there's no argument anymore. He's the best running back in the league. I think he showed it in his demeanor, the way he handled it. There was a little bit, when I was there on Friday, there was quite a bit of the snarkiness to the Stampeders. They were tired of all of our questions, which is interesting because they started them all. And then Cornish was out quietly, puts together not quite a great game, and he made Kory Sheets. There's reasons that Kory Sheets has things to catch up to John, so that kind of worked out well. The Riders, there's some offensive issues there. 4 turnovers, 12 points. It's pretty good, but not enough. That game could have been a blowout in the first half, and we all could have been thinking about things about this game on Saturday coming up against the Eskimos meaning something. So it was kind of the very good Stampeders, a very good Stampeders team that I do see a pretty good chance of being here in the Grey Cup against a Rough Rider team that has some issues and things to clear up, along with attitude, mental toughness, scheming, playing, everything else. But don't have to work on quotes, so some pretty good stories came out of last week, so I'm always going to cheer for that.
We can follow that one for a few more days. It was a weird game because they were leading in the first half, and it felt like they were losing by 12. Yeah. Just because of the opportunities that were presented them and the ones that were not seized. And those ultimately come back to haunt you in a game against a formidable opponent such as Calgary. You can get away with that playing a lesser opponent. You can eke out a victory against a team that's not going to make you pay for not making them pay when you get a turnover. But against Calgary, I guess you can turn it around, though, and say as many miscues as the Rough Riders had, as many things that were belaboring in the extended postmortem of that football game, they lost by 4 points on the road in Calgary to a team that clinched first place. So in a way, it seems like they were cleaned in Calgary, but that Calgary had to score late to win that football game against a Rider team that has some things to improve on. Maybe you can extract a positive from that or am I reaching here? You
look at that season series, Calgary went 2-1, but there's a 4-point difference in all 3 games combined. They were 63 points each going into that game, and Calgary beat them by 4 points in the biggest game of all. So they're really close. It's not a gulf that's this wide. The record looks that wide now when you see the difference in wins, but they're close to being a caliber of a Calgary team. But Calgary's defense is so good, the secondary and everything about it. And Drew Tate comes in from nowhere to pull them out a win. And so now Calgary's got to deal with who's going to be their starting quarterback, which creates that controversy. But they have the luxury of an extra week to deal with that controversy. Here it's Darian Durant's the guy. He's going to be the guy no matter what. He's going to be the guy that responds to every questions, going to have to respond to the offense. He'd probably have to respond to Kory Sheets' blow-up. He's the guy who's going to be in the focus of everything, and rightfully so. So I know I keep pounding on how good Calgary is, and I think we have to remember that looking ahead, Calgary is a very good team. They're well worth their record. The Riders are a team that had that, but every time they got going, they ran into Calgary. You think about the 5-game winning streak they ran into Calgary. They get the next time they play. How many games did they win in a row when they ran into Calgary the last time?
They were 3-0 going into Calgary last year. They were 5-0 going into Calgary this year. They'd won 3 in a row going into Calgary this past week. So
that's why I keep you around, not just for your voice, it's for that statistical mind that just blows me away. But it's very true. Calgary is this team, and I think what's Hufnagel against the Riders, 9-2 or something like that. Some incredible number that.
Well, 09 Hufnagel couldn't get a win out of Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
They were 3 victories. The Riders had 3 victories and a tie against Calgary in 2009 when the Riders finished first and got to the Grey Cup. And then 2010, Riders won in Calgary to get to the Grey Cup. So, but since then, that's been the issue. I mean, 2011 was a write-off. The Riders were 0-10 against the West. And was not a great year. And last year, the Riders made it interesting in Calgary. They had the game where they were up by 17 in the regular season, blew that one, and then in the playoffs they got ahead of them in the final minute and couldn't hold on to it. And this team was built largely around trying to beat Calgary in Calgary. If you look at that playoff game in Calgary last year and the catalyst for change that it became, they've rebuilt a lot of their defense on the basis of what happened to that defense in the playoff game. And in comes George Cortez, in comes Geroy Simon. That game was a catalyst for so much change. What hasn't changed is they still can't win in Calgary.
Exactly. And it's funny how that last-minute play was really reminiscent of what Robbie Bryant did to them in that Western semifinal last year, except there was Weldon Brown on. I think it was Tyron Brackovich was the other guy. I mean, that Jeff Fuller made that. And it was a great pass. I hope it transformed on TV to watching this guy throw a 37-yard rope right to the right spot. It was an amazing pass by Drew Tate. There's other things in Calgary, Rob. I think Kory Sheets showed a little passion or selfishness or arrogance or cockiness or just let's move on to something else. I don't know. I didn't like what I saw from Kory Sheets on the sideline there. I thought George Cortez did the right thing by walking away. I think Kory Sheets he's more than entitled to demand the ball, but I think when your offensive coordinator's in you're in the face of your offensive coordinator, and it's going to be on TV, you got to learn a bit more control than that.
I mean, it's an emotional game. It's an emotional night, and you don't want your players to be devoid of emotion when they're playing the game. Those things are going to happen. I've had meltdowns in touch football, so I mean, those things are going to happen when there's a game being played with that much at stake. But by and large, people are able to control their emotions. Football's a game of controlled emotion. You bang heads for 3 or 4 seconds, and then you relax and go on to the next play. It's all about how you can temper your emotion. And when you see things like that happen with a premier player berating the offensive coordinator on the sidelines, that's a cause for concern. Does it need to be belabored that much more? I think that's pretty much run its course, but it is a sign that this team does have to correct some things that transcend X's and O's going into the most crucial juncture of the season.
We know it occurred after that great forced fumble by Terrace George on the second, I think, 1st and 5 on Calgary's 5, I think 1st and 10. So I didn't like that first play call, but he could have scored. You know, they're not people going to expect Scott McHenry to be your number one choice on a receiving course. The second one, I don't know, you could have had George Reed back there running and they weren't going to get a playoff. The way the pocket collapsed by Calgary's pressure on that play, you knew it wasn't going to be things. So I'm not quite sure if that was the time for Kory Sheets to blow up, but I guess he only had, 5 carries up to that point?
Well, he'd only had 3.
3? Okay, so that was one of the things that maybe that was the sign. You know, to move on from that, and we're going to examine Kory Sheets in the paper for more times. It's all over TV and it's not going away for quite a while. Dwight Anderson, on the other hand, has an epic blowout at the end of the game, which, in my defense, I heard the recording, and it sounded quite a lot angrier in the recording than watching the clip. The clip you
He's
can
smiling.
See. Yeah, you can see it. But that last statement, which everybody saw, Calgary sucks, we're the best team, I didn't see much of a smile there, a little bit of a smile, but it comes across, and it led every story in the paper, and it's going to lead every story for weeks, because that's gold. We want gold, and that sets up the next game, sets up everything. The rivalries there captured the whole moment of that game. But I have to admit, in print, it looks much more inflammatory than it did on TV, and maybe because Cory Chamberlain kind of said that's DA being DA. Maybe it was. Maybe DA showing his playful side at the wrong time. I still don't think it should have been. That was the appropriate time to let the world know that Calgary sucks. I think he should have waited till after a Grey Cup.
People like us, though, are always complaining that athletes don't give us good quotes and that they give us cliches and they give us formulaic answers that are almost a recitation of a songbook. So then when you get something gold like that, who are we to lament?
Oh, I'm not lamenting. It was wonderful. Yeah, you said it was gold. There's your story. It's absolutely. I love to see that passion. I love to see that kind of, that candidness. But you got to pick your places, I guess. I don't know. It's got legs.
Dwight picked his place. He said Calgary.
Calgary, that's true. So and they think that. Just like Kory saying all along, I'm the best running back, I'm not selfish. That all goes along with the game. That's part of their lives. And we'll look at the rest of their lives going forward from here, because in the second half we're going to talk about Edmonton and BC and those things.
Well, Murray, you're one of the top 2 guys in this podcast right now, so grow with that, and we'll get to the second half right away. Thanks for being with us so far. Hi, I'm Rob. This is Murray, and we're back for part 2 of the Rider Rumblings Podcast. Can't believe we've put almost 20 of these down for posterity so far.
I can't believe you sent to touch football to CFL.
No, I'm just saying emotions happen, and if emotions can blow over in the old fat guy touch football league where nobody's getting paid.
Well, I think that says something about you. But
we're champions. Paper boys.
See, I just threw that out there for you.
Well, it's a notable feat, and it's been in print. But all I was trying to say is that if it can happen at that level, how on earth does it not happen at the professional level where there's more at stake, more money at stake, more acclaim? So it's inevitable. If it happens at the lowest levels, it's reasonable, and we are at the lowest level, it's reasonable to expect it at the professional level. So you have to understand and accept that there's going to be an element of emoting taking place given everything that's happening within that realm. Okay. That's the only point I was trying to illustrate, and thank you for the opportunity to reiterate that the Paper Boys won.
Well done. I'm very proud of you.
Now, can the Riders emulate the Paper Boys?
And win against the Edmonton Eskimos?
Win it all.
It's funny.
Undefeated, baby.
We're back at practice, and I'm watching it now, and it's just like, I hate to say, it's just like almost who cares? Like I'm writing down guys trading positions and moving around, and I go, okay, it doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything. Whoopee.
But there is meaning. There's meaning for guys that are going to come in there and try to enter a contract for next year. There's a number of free agents on the team. Guys, they're going to put out tape together. So they have a possibility in a real live game where they're keeping score and standings to put tape on them. So it's tough to say meaningless. It's meaningless in every other way, and we're going to talk. We'll find different ways to say meaningless this week.
Irrelevant, inconsequential,
everything. It'll just be but it does have meaning. They're going to sell tickets, and there's going to be people watching. So, on the other hand, the Riders have earned this opportunity to have this meaningless game by their strong start. We kind of thought back in September, the last game against Edmonton wouldn't have much meaning, just the way the season was shaken out. So kind of the Riders have earned this opportunity to not have to play their starters on Saturday against the Eskimos. And based on what I've seen, there aren't going to be a lot of starters out there. There's going to be a lot of people you're going to watch, and unlike a preseason game, there's some sort of incentive for these guys to play, and they'll be out there. But there's going to be a lot of new faces, and I don't know how much weight you put on a win in this. Nothing. I guess a win is coming out healthy with all your guys. I don't think you're going to see Durant. I don't think Kory Sheets is going to play. Chris Getzlaf isn't going to play, and you didn't have an update on his status on his sprained knee today. Good news, Chris Best will be back. I would think he's coming off the injured list. For those people not as in-depth with the Riders as Rob and I, maybe Chris Best is probably the best right guard on the team. The Riders were 7-1 when he went down with, I think it's kind of like a torn ligament in the sole of his foot that kind of got him right there. But they were 7-1 when he went down, and look at the way the season's gone, and he'll be back. So they could have the same offensive line that started the season with Ben Heenan at right tackle, which has got to be a good thing considering they gave up 7 sacks against Calgary.
What if Getzlaf can't go in the playoffs, and then by having another Canadian playing on the offensive line, you also buy yourself some flexibility if you want to find.
What position do you play in the old fat?
I am mascot.
Oh, good.
My position is tenuous.
Well, you're Canadian, though, so you'd help the import ratio.
Absolutely.
But there's got to be someone better than you. Yeah, Getzlaf is a big one. He's their leading receiver, and I know we all go, really? Because he's kind of had a quiet leading receiving type year. We always talk about Dressler. Simon has had way more attention paid to him than anybody else. Cash Smith has had a pretty good season. He still needs a pretty good game. I don't know if he's going to play. He needs a pretty good game to get to 1,000 yards. But Chris Getzlaf is a guy that Durant has confidence in. Every drop that he has is totally magnified or even blown up because of last year. But he's had a pretty consistent
year. He's had a terrific season.
He's probably going to be an all-star. He might have been a consideration for a lot of people for top Canadian on this team.
And still is. He is the top Canadian on this team.
Yeah, I would think that's probably a pretty good. Craig Butler had a pretty good year too.
Yeah, but you've got a Canadian receiver who gets 1,000 yards. That's your best Canadian. Yeah. Next topic. Okay, what should we talk about?
How about them BC Lions? Who do you think is going to be quarterback?
I would be very surprised if it wasn't Travis Lulay. I mean, he's practicing again. It's a win or else game. Why wouldn't you play Travis Lulay as well as Buck Pierce played last week? Why are you paying Travis Lulay all that money if you don't put him in there?
Probably that's a throwing shoulder that he hurt and injured, and he looked very stoic on the side. I remember watching that game thinking he's trying not to show how much this hurts. We'll see how much he can bounce back. But what a cushion they have in Buck Pierce. Buck Pierce looked like the old Buck Pierce that used to beat the Riders kind of handedly with those type of plays. So, and they got Thomas DeMarco, who's in the background. So yeah, the Lions quarterback situation looks pretty good almost. Do you feel better if happens if Thomas DeMarco? I don't think it'd be Thomas DeMarco.
I don't think it'd be DeMarco again. But you got to be wary of this team. If you look at it, last 4 Rider home playoff games that they've had dating back to 1988, and the third place Lions have won 2 of them. So that third place team can bite you. 1988, the Riders beat BC twice. Didn't matter at all come playoff time.
Yeah, come on. Michael Bishop was the quarterback.
The infamous Bishop Bowl in 2008.
Yes. 4 turnovers, I think, in the first half.
Yeah, that was out of town by the end of the weekend.
Yeah, okay.
But, those things can happen. And you're talking about what kind of BC team are people going to be seeing that weekend in November? Is it going to be the BC team that the Riders have just won 2 in a row against, or is it going to be a BC team with Travis Lulay quarterbacking? The Riders had the good fortune of playing three games against BC without Travis Lulay being in any of them.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And Thomas DeMarco helped them win the first one. But if it's Travis Lulay, that's a guy who 2 years ago won a Grey Cup and most outstanding player in the league. How much does that change the team? How much does Stefan Logan's increased role change that team? At some point, Andrew Harris is going to, I think, reemerge as a weapon.
Well, that's what happened.
That's a really good football team.
You watched Andrew Harris and Stefan Logan. That's kind of what they experienced, like thunder and lightning. And Andrew Harris played like the guy who was the Kory Sheets last year in chasing John Cornish. He showed the power and the passion that he can really bring to a game and be a game changer. So that it will be. And the Lions still have a pretty good defense. The Riders have a great defense.
Those linebackers.
Those
defensive backs who are so familiar to all.
And we know what Ryan Phillips has done to Darian Durant over the years, and he loves playing at Mosaic Stadium. And Ryan Phillips he's got, I think, 13 picks against the Riders, and almost all of them are from Durant, which kind of coincides with their seasons together. So, yeah, the Riders, it'd be interesting. I was going to ask today, but during practice, do they start scouting BC this week? Because it's all about one game, the next game. And I would think there's enough coaches on this staff they can put some guys away to do scouting on BC.
Why would you game plan for Edmonton beyond the cursory preparation?
Well, how much do you think it means to having 12 wins? That's and I don't.
But last year, if they go into the regular season finale and win, and then they benched everybody except Ivan Gutfriend for the regular season finale last year, and that approach cost them, basically gave them a losing season. It didn't matter to them whether they were 9-9 or 8-10. And there's a difference between 500 and a losing season. If that didn't matter, I don't know why the difference between 11 and 12 victories
wins,
would be.
I know everyone kind of thought they get 11. This 12 would be kind of like a bonus. I don't know how. I just thought some of the players I've talked to, that extra win means something to them. It means something to their record. I don't know if you tell your grandchildren if you're down in Louisiana that I had 12 wins in 2013.
It's something they haven't done a lot.
Yeah, it doesn't happen
They had 12 wins in 2008. They had 12 wins in 2007. Before that, they hadn't had 12 wins since 1970.
I set that one up for you too.
Wasn't that statistically sound?
I just know how to play into you. Cheaper by the dozen, you might say.
But if they get their 12th win, that's all wiped clean. Yeah. Come playoff time.
But if they get their 12th win and someone gets hurt, you go, well, that's dumb.
So much caution has to be advised. I think prudence will win the day here. Darian Durant acknowledged that he's very banged up, and you play to get first place because you think, okay, you can get a first round bye. Well, this way you've got a pseudo bye a week earlier. Yeah. You've got an opportunity to rest some guys. You can't rest everybody because rosters are small, but this is an opportunity that should be seized to rest some of your marquee players because you don't want anything to happen. Especially given the situation with Chris Getzlaff, who knows if he's ready for the playoffs? Well, what if another receiver gets hurt or nicked? Then what do you do? Plus, I think they're a little precarious in that one of their receivers is Rob Bagg. He has a history of injuries. What if something were to happen to Rob Bagg? They've got to be so protective of that receiving core above all else right now to ensure that what they have is is available for the playoffs, because they're working without a net in terms of receiving depth.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So rest them all.
Rest them all.
I think someone's trying to sell tickets, though.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And there's a lot of vouchers, and there's a lot of Grey Cup volunteers tied into their volunteer things. There's 2 tickets to this final game, so I think the Riders might have seen that. And we'll see what kind of crowd they get there.
We shall, and we shall digest and dissect all that in future editions of the Rider Rumblings podcast. Thanks for being with us throughout the regular season, and we look forward to chatting with you during the playoffs leading up to the Grey Cup. Take care.
Maybe an old fat guy's touch league Rider podcast would work.